Something we find in the majority of our evaluations here at the OAI is hamstring inflexibility. Watch this video and find out some of the stretches we use to elongate or stretch the hamstring. Okay guys, so starting down right here on the table, one of the best stretches that we use because it replicates the finished position to a fairly good degree is a hamstring prone hamstring stretch off the table. We plant this leg, keep it semi-extended at the knee, and then we pull using our hand here or push on here, whatever we got to do. Try to push your opposite hip into the table so you're avoiding abduction at the hip, and then you push yourself or pull yourself back. And you're going to hold that for 30 seconds minimum. You know, we usually say if you can hold it for a minimum of 30, you're good. If you can hold it for a minute, even better. And we'll do a few sets, and we often do both sides. So you're right here, stretching. And we'll do both sides on this. So we'll see you at the next one. Okay, so the next one, we're down here on the ground. I got a pad under my knee, but we're going to be doing a hamstring stretch from the half kneel position, toe to the sky, mostly straight, hips forward, not externally rotated in the back hip, but we're extended, internally rotated relatively, and then we're going to stretch forward. And I got this table here. You can use a chair in the beginning to just use for balance. I'm stretching this landing leg hamstring, but I'm going to do both sides. So I do this. I don't want to go kyphotic and flexed in my spine. I want to remain extended as much as possible through my thoracic and just hang out there. Then when I'm somewhat more advanced, I can do more advanced versions of what I'm going to show you next. Or I can incorporate a rotation aspect to it. So I can work on many different things at the same time, but I want to improve the excursion of my hamstrings as well, not just flexibility that I can't use. So the next exercise, or these have been stretches, and the next one's going to be an exercise where I activate and learn to control that range. I can do that same thing from here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go right over to the cable column and show you that. So guys, I'm here with our third exercise, or our third progression of the hamstring usable excursion, usable length video. And what I'm going to do is I have a cable column attached somewhat low, knee height roughly, around that area, and I'm going to go into a serratus press from an elongated position of the hamstring where I'm going farther into that position. So I'm learning to contract into that range and control that range of motion, and I'm getting used to doing it. So it's not just enough to passively stretch. Even if you're doing a PNF or a style of stretching where you're contracting both agonist and antagonist, it's much better to do that in combination with an exercise progressing and contracting through that range. So right here, I'm going to grab our handle, and you can use a band, obviously, whatever you have. And you're going to get out into that lengthened hamstring position, standing tall, and I'm going to go farther into it as I go through the exercise. So I'm going to come out, and then I'm going to serratus press, which is protraction around the rib cage where I'm. So what I do is think of pushing the shoulder like you're reaching as far as you possibly can, pushing the shoulder out of the socket. That's protraction. So it's like I'm pushing as far as I can, rotating slightly. I'm trying to rotate through my thoracic spine, keep my back somewhat neutral, my spine somewhat neutral, and then I'm not going kyphotic. And I'm going into that hamstring elongated position, externally rotated. So I'm always focusing on the proper exercise mechanics, not only since my goal is hamstring length, but I'm also doing the proper progression for the serratus press or the serratus punch or whatever you call them. And I'm doing it in a position that mimics the throwing motion much better than lying on my back and doing a boring old ceiling punch, which may be indicated in the beginning of therapy. But as you progress, you want to go more and more advanced and more into unstable positions and positions that are going to be acquired throughout the throwing motion. So again, I can do bilateral, unilateral. Here I'm showing a unilateral exercise, but I'm here, I'm going into that hamstring, pressing as far as I can. I hold for 5, hold, and then I come back, I come out of it, I go back into it, pressing as far as I can, stretching that hamstring. The more flexible guys maybe don't use their hamstrings as well as they possibly could have or could, so they may be flexible enough to do this with ease, but they're not used to contracting through that range. And we find that this is great, but we also find that doing it from that half kneeling position where I just showed you that previous stretch is awesome. We use this one, we use that one, we'll use them in combination at times. That one's a little bit more difficult when I remove the chair or the table that I was using for stability while I was going into the stretch, and I'll do it with a band, an SFMA band, where I'm doing protraction on both sides, maybe unilateral, maybe I'm doing protraction and thoracic rotation to the left or even to the right. But as you do those variations, it becomes more and more difficult. And you'll see if you try it with your athletes or you try it yourself, that doing that half kneeling position, when you go into a little bit of hip internal rotation, your leg isn't at your front leg isn't abducted, but it's in straight line with your other one, and your pelvis is square and facing straight forward. You'll find that it's difficult to maintain stability. So that's why we, in the beginning, will show it with a external chair or table to create that stability so we can get a good stretch in. But when we go to this, we're progressing to less stable, so you can control that and your body becomes more stable. You're creating stability at the same time as mobility and usable excursion of your muscle tissue. So again, we'll come here, do some, and you can do this from a lunge stance to I've found this in my own training I love it. I'll go right, and I'll show you right here. So a little bonus for everyone out there. And I'll start in a lunge here, not protracted yet, and I'll protract and extend the knee. So even slightly more specific, and I'll try to hold. I mean, you can hold 5 to 10 seconds. But thanks for watching the video. Implement these in your training program right away, especially if you have hamstring flexibility deficit, or if you don't use the hamstring flexibility you have. This last variation, or these last 2 variations actually, would be phenomenal for you to put into your program right away. And we recommend holding our stretch, like I said, for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, in that range. You can hang out in the stretch longer, do a prolonged static stretch. We often incorporate agonist and antagonist muscle contraction, so the target muscle, the muscle you're stretching, and then the muscle on the opposite side, trying to go farther into that stretch. But anything you do, if you're not doing anything right now, is going to be awesome. We also say if you can do them six days a week, do stretching, not necessarily all the exercises, but if you can do your stretching 5-6 days a week, that'd be optimal. Some guys want to do it 7, but most of the kids we find only want to do it once a week or never. So we have them do it when they're with us. But if you can get your kid to do it before bed, or you yourself are a pitcher, if you can get yourself to do your stretches before bed or at a specific time every day and get in a regimen of it, it's going to pay off. I'm telling you right now, it's going to pay off both in longevity, but more importantly in performance. If you can acquire the positions that you need in the throwing motion more effectively and more efficiently, it's going to pay off on the radar gun, in endurance, because if I'm constantly fighting to get myself into a trunk flexed position in my follow through, I'm going to be using more strength to do it. So ultimately, it's whether you want to dedicate the time to do the stretches, but those are 3 of the most effective stretches that we use all the time. Obviously, there's many variations, but if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to us, because we're going to be coming at you with constant content throughout the week. You know, we're going to be posting right now, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. It might change days as I get into more of my course load for PT school, or as Ed's schedule may change. But either way, we're looking to continue to post 3 days a week, so you don't want to miss any of that stuff. But all right, guys, we'll catch you next time.